Hi, everyone. So nice of you to join us again on our series on spiritual alchemy. This is the fifth video on the series. The first one was an introduction on what spiritual alchemy is, basically the conversion of our human character into a saintly one and a saintly one into a divine one. And then the next videos were on how we attain those qualities. How do we go from human character to a divine character? And we are looking at the virtues of the seven Ameshaspands, and we are finding out what their piece of creation was and how we can, their virtues, and how we can find the human virtues that parallel those virtues. So we are now on the fifth video of that series. So the first one was the introduction to spiritual alchemy. The second one was on Spenta Armadi, developing the virtues of Spenta Armadi. And on that video, we learned, I'm going to throw the chart up here for you again. In that video, we learned about Spanmard Ameshaspand or Spentamard Ameshaspand. And we found that her divine virtues were that of perfect humility towards our Mazda and the ability to convert trash into treasure. And we learned that for us, we have to move. Um, First step in any religion, really, our first step is humility towards that or Mazda's will. But then humility goes one step further than that, and it's actually the rejection of ego, where rejection of ego is not just a sense of not being prideful. A rejection of ego is coming to the ultimate understanding that the self, the I does not exist. And the idea that everything that we see around us is God and God at work. So that ultimate um, letting go of this concept of self and finding our way through that is part of the virtues of Spenta Armadi. We discussed all that in our video, so I don't want to really do repetitions here on this one. So do go back and see those videos if you haven't seen them already. And the other thing, Spent Almighty turns trash into treasure. So basically, the idea that whatever is on the surface of the earth, whatever is, even if you put garbage or something that's rotting, ultimately through her actions, through her virtues, she will, that, that whatever's on the surface of the earth will ultimately go within the earth and be compressed within the earth, become something like coal, and from coal into precious stones or diamonds. So, for us to develop similar qualities, the human qualities that parallel that is the ability to convert hate into love. And we discussed that in great detail. It's not as easy as we can imagine at first thought. Then after that, we went to the discussion on Sherivar Meshaspan, and we found that Sherivar Meshaspan is in charge of metals and subtle energies. And I'm just going to concentrate for a moment on the subtle energies, which is really takes up our aura, our 16 chakra, and our thoughts, our devotion, our thoughts, our emotions, our desires, good or bad. So all these subtle energies are within us, and we learned that as long as we have both good and bad, those energies are basically the negative energies are basically holes in our character. The good energies fortify our character; they fortify our aura, just like. Um, a vessel, you do not want to be a vessel put into the ocean if you have holes in it, all the ocean water or any contamination, outside contamination will come in. Similarly, we want to fortify our aura, make it like metal, make it like steel, make it like gold, in fact, so that we are very alert, mentally alert for any kind of negative thoughts, emotions arising in us, and quickly to address those emotions and thoughts. And basically, it is the tenacity, building up the tenacity within us to resist evil thoughts, words, and deeds. And then we talked about Ardivesham assessment. Now, Ardivesham assessment is often known as just Asha or divine law, and or sometimes even just as fire. But here in Zoroastrianism, um, we identify about 16 different types of fire, which we won't get into, but what reason for saying that is for us to understand and acknowledge that fire isn't just the burning flames that we see when we go to an Atisbaram or when we light a devo. So to us, fire is subtle energy, and that subtle energy is what is the very function functioning of the Dharma's laws in the entire universe. The very fact that the planets are all spinning around the sun, the galaxies are in motion, and even in fact, even right to the very a single cell in our body, we'll see that there's a nucleus and there's electrons, protons, and neutrons which do their little dance in there. Um, and that dance that is created inside a single cell is really what determines what that cell has manifested into, whether it's an animal, a flower, or a human being, or whatever. And those laws are based on that is what we call asha. It is the divine laws. That laws include all kinds of, there are 7 components in that law. I don't want to repeat over here in this video. But moving on to what our virtues should be and how we should develop those virtues is basically, of course, we have to have a love for truth. We have to follow the path of truth. But we learned in that video that following the path of truth or being truthful is not just about being honest. So the whole idea of understanding who you are, why you are here, how you are put here, what is your body, what is made up of, what is our body made up of? What are the 16 chakras? What is our soul? Why did we come? Where do we have to go? What are the heavens? So all of these answers, why did Zartospegenberg come? Why is there God? Why is there life? What is our purpose? So understanding all of these things is all part of traveling on the path of truth. And that path of truth also requires asha in the sense of purity. So only until we practice our religious customs, we practice the purity that is required to cleanse our aura through those customs and rituals. We simultaneously, as we purify our aura and make our aura more full of light and not clouded and not dark with our negative energies, thoughts, and emotions, then we will also move on that path of understanding what real truth is, what divine truth is, what we are here for, why God has put us here, what our purpose is. But the other fundamental and extremely important aspect of Adiveshamasaspand and divine and developing the qualities of Adiveshamasaspand is that developing those centrifugal forces within our own being that repel us from the negative, repel us from evil, repel us from evil thoughts, words, deed, and actually pull us towards the goodness, the truth. So it's when we say the love, developing the love of truth, it's not just to say a surface love of truth. It means loving truth more than you love anything else, loving truth more than you love yourself or your self-preservation, your self-protection. So not saying that little white lie, not doing little things that we feel are unconsequential in the large scope of things, because in the large scale, every little thing that we think, if we are being dishonest or untruthful to anyone or anything, we are not loving truth more than we love whatever it is that we're trying to do. So that idea of developing, just like the sun is rotating and the planets are rotating all around the sun, that centrifugal forces is what we have to develop within us, according to that will parallel the same virtues that Adiveshamasaspand does, because Adiveshamasaspand literally pushes all negative away from that Ramazda, away from the center of Ramazda, away from the heavens, and pulls all the good, all the positive, all the pure and perfect back to Dada Mazda, back through the heavens and back to Dada Mazda. So we kind of have to cultivate that inner desire for the same thing. But today we're moving on to Bahman Ameshaspand. And Bahman Ameshaspand is often mis misunderstood, I feel, because we quickly define Bahman Ameshaspand as the good mind. And then as human as we are and full of ego as we are, we immediately assume that that good mind means the human good mind, that we have the good mind. But we forget that actually we have been moved out of the center of Dadara Mazda. We've moved out from the heavens. We have fallen into creation. We have fallen into the cradle of life and death because we are imperfect. And we are not imperfect just because we are in body. We are imperfect. The imperfection arise in the very thought of self, the very thought of ego, um, the very thoughts that we have that are negative, not perfect, do not belong in heaven. Those thoughts which Ardibhe Shamasaspan has moved away from heaven. So we are the culmination of those positive and negative thoughts. Not to say we are completely negative, but we are woven with positive and negative. And we're here to alchemize that. And that alchemy begins in our thoughts. And so our minds, the human mind, should not be confused with what we call Vomanamashaspan or divine consciousness. Because again, remember, Vomanamashaspan or Vomanamashaspan is an Ameshaspan. It is the very emanation of Dadurmazda, an emanation as all the other Ameshaspans. So just as we are not Mother of Earth, and although our bodies can be seen as the earth of our soul, we are not the earth. Similarly, just as blood flows through our veins, um, and feeds our entire body and gives our entire body nutrition. We are not the ocean, and we are not Kordadam Sasva. So similarly, though we have a mind, we have to develop into the perfection of woman. We cannot say that we are actually practicing the good mind. So to understand that, we're going to dive into the talk then of Brahmanamashaspan, and you will notice that if you look at the chart up here, you'll notice that the part of creation that Brahmanamashaspan is in charge of is basically cow kind and kine, Kine, kind. So all the blissful animals, the innocent animals, the hoofed animals, like deer and like sheep, that type of those type of animals. Though ultimately he is in charge of all animals, but those that um, vibrate with his qualities, with the qualities of woman, are cow and kine. Okay. And you see a lot of reference to cows and kine in our Avestan prayers. And this is, we should draw some parallels here as to why we are talking about cows and sheep and so forth in the Avestan prayers. We don't want to get into that, but I just wanted to bring that up just for a thought for you to think about. So, as we mentioned, then Vamana Maheshaspan is divine consciousness. It's the very consciousness of Dadurmazda. And that consciousness is, as you see on the chart here, it's perfect divine knowledge and wisdom. So we do not have perfect divine knowledge and wisdom. And we cannot equate intelligence and knowledge about the general world to Roman. So what I'm trying to get at here is, just because we've gone to university, just because we have, created some magnificent things, that does not mean we have Roman. Roman means for us to be on the track of Woman, to be guided by Woman, first of all, guided by Woman, is having intelligence that leads to faith. So if our faith, especially in this day and age, um, we are so far being removed from having faith. All our advancements in technology, all our advancements in education, all of these things are actually moving us away from faith. And as far as our religion goes, as far as Woman Ameshaspand goes, or developing the virtues of Woman Ameshaspand, that is not positive intelligence. That's intelligence. If intelligence leads you away from God, if it leads you away from faith, then it's leading you away from your ultimate purpose, the purpose for which you were created. And hence, it is not called intelligence. It is the opposite of intelligence. And if something is bringing you towards faith, something is bringing you towards God, towards following the path, that is intelligence. That is Voman. That is not Voman, but that is the beginning of the process of attaining Voman. That is attaining divine consciousness. So, um, how do we get to divine consciousness? Well, it's a journey. Um, and I just want to go right. Just want to backtrack just for 1 second, though. That when I say that education does not equal Voman, we have to understand that everything that we are studying, everything that we create for ourselves, everything that we do um, is based on the idea of 3 dimensions: length, breadth, and width. Length, depth, and width. And the 5 senses: can we see it? Can we hear it? Can we smell it? Can we taste it, or can we touch it? So even science is guided by these same limitations. So when we are talking about God and spirit and soul, these things are not perceived by these 5 senses, and they are certainly not within our 3 dimensions that we can perceive with our 5 senses. So here, divine intelligence, Woman is that kind of intelligence that leads to breaking free of these restriction of your 5 senses, restriction of the idea that there are only 3 dimensions, and entering into a world of multi-dimensional existence, such is the reality of where we are. Because right now we have our soul, we can't see it. We have Farawar and Fravashi with us, but we can't see it. When we pray, hopefully Sarosha is present, but we can't see him. So the idea that there is other dimensions that are not perceivable by us is there. It's clear. And we cannot break through. We cannot break through the cocoon that our 5 senses make unless we um, enter into such education that leads us into mysticism. Mysticism means understanding, or allowing your mind to slowly grasp that which you cannot perceive with your 5 senses. And a very simple example of that is faith itself, right? Well, thoughts, we cannot see our thoughts, we cannot see our emotions, we cannot see our desires, we just see the final outcome of those things when they materialize into something. But also faith. So, a person who might not have faith suddenly is in a bad situation and prays, and suddenly help comes to that person. It's the beginning step of faith. Now that person has realized there is something out there. And perhaps their skeptical mind will say, oh, it's just a fluke. It's not this, it's not that. It just happened. But sooner or later, they'll try again and try again and try again. And if it keeps happening, they'll have to at least come to the final acceptance that there is something greater out there than what we can perceive with our senses. So here, Vomanamashaspan then, and that intelligence that refers to Volman attaining Volman is that intelligence which leads to faith, which leads to God. which leads to your movement towards God. So, having said that, how do you make that movement? How do you break the cocoon of your five senses? Well, it's very simple and difficult at the same time. Of course, every religion has its own prescription. If you were a yogi, you would have to, um, practice asceticism, and they do all kinds of mental and physical exercises to break free from their senses and the hold that our senses have on our mind. But our mind is able to perceive, but it doesn't. But right now we're just training it to perceive through our five senses, and we have to break that and train it to perceive otherwise. So um what our religion then does for us, what we call the path of Ashoy or Tariqat, the path of purity, the path of practicing our religion. That path, along with all the rituals, Sadro and Kasti, saying our prayers, Matravani, thinking the right thoughts as you say your prayers, practicing the purity, all of these things, 5 times a day, praying 5 times minimally, doing your kasti 5 times a day, minimally practicing basic level of purity in your house, in your home, in your life. Um, all of these things help um, cleanse our aura. Now, I showed you before. I think I have a picture up here. I'll just pop a picture up for you. In our other in our other videos that we saw in this series, we came to this diagram which I've put up here for you, which is the 9 constituents of a human being. And in that, you see that we have three divine constituents, Pravashi, Bodhang, and Oran. We have three physical constituents, which is Tanu, your body, Gaita, which is your organs, vital organs, and Azdabish, which is your etheric sort of double, it's kind of a fluid. But we also have our care, Tivishi and Ushtana, which is a subtle oval form around us with 16 chakras and desirable forces and subtle life energy. So what happens when we do practice our prayers? And I'll show you our 16 chakra. I don't think I've shown you that before. There's a big picture of it up here right now of our 16 chakras. And they're all related to a certain energy name. They have a name, they have a planetary influence, which we don't want to get into right now. But just for your knowledge, we have these 16 chakras. So as we practice this path of truth, path of Ashoi or purity, path of Tariqat, which means rituals, as we practice that, what is happening is we are getting not only cleansing our own aura, our own chakra, but we are actually able to receive a divine kind of an energy, a subtle divine energy that helps us or strengthens us. So as we practice our tariqat, as we progress on the path of purity and ashoi, well, it's ashoi and purity is the same thing, path of ashoi tariqat, then we actually are we're fortifying our own inner unseen spiritual strength. And that is because we as human beings, we have um, basic 21 types of physical druge or physical negative energies, let's say, that are woven with good energies. And what's happening is that when we see something, when we hear something, you know, those energies are either awakened towards moving, gravitating towards something negative and away from the path, or gravitating towards something that is positive and towards the path. So as we fortify our aura, the energies within our 16 chakra are also fortified. Our being is fortified with positive energy. And hence, in doing that, we are able to not only subdue, but overcome and even transform the negative within us into positive. And that's our whole purpose, isn't it? Our individual spiritual alchemy is about ultimately addressing the negatives in us, controlling them, and then slowly applying pressure, whatever that pressure means, applying pressure and ultimately converting them to positive, converting them to light until they exist no more. Not just to sort of pressure them down and then keep them down and hopefully they don't come up, not that way, but to actually apply a certain spiritual pressure that converts them into um, positive energies. In the same way that a dark room, a very dark room, all you would have to do is light a single match and the room will start having light, and you have converted that darkness into light. It is now light. So similarly, what we have to do is through positive action, positive thoughts, positive the application of our positive energies, including everything from matravani to our rituals that we do. All these things are the same kind of process as lighting the little match in a dark room, because they start converting the negative energies into positive energies. So, that is like the very basic of um, starting on that path of attaining the qualities of woman and husband. First of all, it's starting to develop, humility, absence of ego, fortifying our aura, um, practicing truth and developing a love for truth, moving towards truth, feeling disgust and repelling away untruth, lie, darkness. But also now we know that on the path of a shoy, we're building up an inner spiritual strength that takes us on the path towards Dadura Mazda, towards his divine light. And as we fortify that aura, as we cleanse those dark energies, as I mentioned in one of the other videos, it's like holding a piece of paper up to the sun. And every time that we are successful in converting a dark energy, we are poking holes in that paper, and the brilliancy of the light of the sun comes in. Similarly, we are poking those holes in the negative aspects of our aura, and divine light, divine truth, divine blissfulness, divine love starts pouring in, and we begin seeing, begin experiencing a realm of existence that we cannot perceive with our five senses. And then we start moving on that path of truth towards woman, towards developing woman. But if I go back to the picture of the nine constituents of the human being, um, let me just add, like, ultimately, where do we want to be with this? Um, so let me add that the divine aspects, Pravashi, Bodhang, and Uran, are immortal. They are always there, and at this moment, they are perfect. Even our soul is perfected, but that perfection has happened through eons of Dadura Mazda's work, through um, one one time cycle after another. When we say our prayers, we always say Zorane Karne Zorane Durga Kurare. What are these? These are time cycles. And these time cycles, through many, many time cycles of cosmogenesis, pre-cosmogenesis, cosmogenesis, and the many time cycles that we've gone through afterwards, the we have developed, the earth has gone from a fiery state to an airy state to a water state to now a state of matter. And through those first three evolutions of fire, water, and air, uh, Dadar Mazda has, for us, already alchemized our soul, and already alchemized the soul part, the part that is the soul. The negative energies have been removed, they've been pushed away. That's this law of Ashavesta, that negative energies have been slowly pushed away. Where have they gone? Well, as the earth went through this um evolution after evolution. During the evolution of fire, our carp energies were created. During the evolution of air, our Tivishi, our desirable forces, have been created. During the evolution of water, our Ushtan up has been created. If this all seems too crazy for you, I do. If you watch the news from time to time, you will see a scientific update. And I think last year I was watching BBC, and they were talking about now with their telescope they can now see there were some planets that are actually only fire, and there are some planets that are actually only earth. And this is really evidence for us to know that our earth has already gone through these evolutions of fire, water, air, and now we're on the evolution of matter. And so now we are left with this. Now the negative energies have been pushed into what we call this Azdabish, Tanu, and Gaitwa. So the reason for going through all this is to impress upon you the immense amount of time and the immense amount of work that nature, that God has gone through to protect and remove the negative energies away from the soul, to sort of um, place it in a seed, like just a seed, like any other seed. It has a hard is a hard shell around a life that can grow into a plant. So similarly, our soul is very well protected through all these evolutions so that the negative does not re-enter. And hence, what we have to realize is why we're going through all this work is that we are trying to perfect these positive energies within us. I mean, these negative, I'm sorry. We have to perfect these negative energies within us to positive energies. We have to remove um, the existence um, of opposition within us between negative and positive. That opposition has to be removed in order then for our soul, for the seed to sprout, for the soul to actually come out and feel. The soul has to be able to enter this vessel um, safely because nature has protected that soul. And what we are trying to do is create an environment for that soul to come out. And when it is safe for the soul to come out, Saroshazid will come and knock on that seed and say, "Hey, it's safe for you to come out," and the soul will then start showing itself. And that is, my friends, that is actually divine intelligence. So when our soul actually takes over this vessel, when our soul actually takes over the mind and rules our life, when our mind and our five senses and the very thought of I and the very thought of ego, are sort of on our knees and begging for the soul to take over, and surrendering ourselves to the soul that is within us, where there is no opposition, where we are saying, "Do whatever you want, you please come out and take charge of this vessel." At that moment, at that time, when the soul does come out and become conscious and start ruling our lives and start guiding our lives, then you can say that we have divine consciousness, because that's the only divine part. That's the only real divine consciousness within us. Right now, it's our five senses and the sense of I that is ruling our mind and our thoughts. So, very, very long road, a very, very long journey, difficult concepts to understand. But I do want to put them out here for you just so that we don't always minimize everything. Even if you don't understand everything that I'm saying, or it seems too far out. I think my point is, in all of these videos and all of everything I teach in all of my books, all of these my points are basically to show you that we should not simplify to the extent that we lose the true value of what our religion is. Because right now, if we tell our children we have the good mind, then what is the point of doing anything else in life, right? We are already there. But are we? There's so much anger, there's so much hate, there's so much jealousy, there's so much there's so much unsureness or lack of clarity on what is right and what is wrong on many controversial issues. Our community is full of controversies. Just pick one. The reality is that we do not have, I'm sorry, the reality is we don't have a good mind. We have a human mind. We have good intentions. It's not the same as a good mind. We have good intentions, and that's well and good. But to develop the good mind, which is what we call Bahman, and Bahman is an Ameshaspand, which is actually an emanation of Dadar Mazda, and it's the very emanation of his mind. It's his divine consciousness. How can we assume to be there? We're not there. And only when our soul actually takes over this vessel, and when it starts behaving and acting like an agent for God, then we can say that that person, that saint, that person is has Bohman and is moving on the path of going back towards Dadar Mazda. So hope you enjoyed this video. I hope I've been able to explain the concepts well to you. Um, the next video will be on the next topic will be on Khordad Amisaspan, and then following that Amardad. Although Khordad and Amardad always go together, we will try to discuss them separately. Because just as in your body, you have, like I said, veins and blood. The blood cannot really run through your body without the veins. And similarly, Khordad works with Amardad. Amardad um, we'll discuss all that when we get there, but we're going to take them up separately. Um, and anyways, do read if you do have a chance and you're interested in these topics. There's only so much I can really put on a video. Um, I don't like to read from things on a video, so many things somehow escape the mind at the moment when I'm speaking. And really, do address our books. For small topics or for very short um, one page kind of uh, discussions, you can pick up our book, Simply Din. And that one has a lot of topics on spiritual alchemy as well as other topics in the religion. And it's just really one article, very short articles for you to read. But I think they will explain issues much better. You can also visit our Humata Facebook page where I've put many of these articles from our Simply Din books. The other thing is the Individual Spiritual Alchemy. There's an entire book I've written on it, which is called Freedom Bound. I'll put all the links for you at the end of this video. But Freedom Bound is really if you're interested in spiritual alchemy and Zoroastrianism, but even if you're studying Zoroastrianism or if you're of another religion, just want to know how it compares, this has comparisons between other religions. And it's a really feel good book. It has many, it's not full of poems, it has maybe one poem for per chapter, really just to bring that um, the emotional presence into learning about religion, because we can really learn and study all these things and memorize all these things, but nothing really will um, come to be unless we, number one, practice, and number two, have the emotional um, drive or the emotional want to be there. So whether it's being lost in your emotions, whether it's not finding your way, or whether it's finding your way and being wanting to be with Dada Mazda, all these things are covered in Freedom Bound, right from the state of a person being um, without faith to a person having full faith, and what that journey really will look like. um, it's all part of our religion, how many stages we have to go through. And like I said, we have many stages to go through. I'll put that chart back up here just to remind you um, that there's 27 stages to our soul's advancement. And we are really only at the lowest stage, which could be number one, or at best we are at number three. but we are certainly far from even being Narashwans, or, very, very far from anything higher than that. So, um, that's basically what I wanted to discuss today. I hope that I've been able to enlighten you a little bit as to what Vahuman really is, and why we should not continue to say that it is the good mind as though we have it. It is divine consciousness, and it is for us to bring that about in us. Two ways. One is to cleanse our aura and let the divine light come in and guide us. And the other is the final outcome, is which is really what we are looking for, what we're moving towards, is when we surrender to our soul, when our mind, our body, our thoughts, emotions, desires, senses, everything surrenders to our soul and pleads for it to take charge of this vessel again. Then, when the soul does take over and runs our life, then we can say that we have Vahuman, or divine consciousness. Until then, we're just working towards it. We're working towards cleansing ourselves and trying our best with our best intentions to move forward. So, hope you enjoyed this video. I'll put the links right after this, and do join us again for the next few videos. Thanks. Bye bye.